What happens when your own father suspends you from work until you apologize to your sister and assumes you have nowhere else to go? I calmly agreed and walked out exactly the way they expected. What they didn't expect was how fast a competitor would recognize my value and how expensive that silence would become. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe, hit the hype button, and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? The meeting started ordinary enough. Conference room C, same table I'd sat at 100 times before. Jade stood near the projection screen, cycling through slides I'd built 3 days earlier. She called it her quarterly review, but the data was mine. Every metric, every workflow diagram, every cost projection, I'd pulled that together while she attended her networking dinners. As you can see, Jade said, gesturing to a chart showing efficiency gains, we've streamlined vendor onboarding by 17%. I watched from the back corner. The regional managers nodded. Felix sat at the head of the table, arms folded, looking proud. Jade's voice had that confident rhythm she used when claiming credit. Wes, she said suddenly, turning toward me, you flagged concerns about the timeline, didn't you? Every face in the room swiveled my direction. I raised questions about moving the implementation date forward, I said carefully. The system's integration wasn't complete. But we moved forward anyway, Jade said, smiling. And it worked. It worked because I stayed late for 2 weeks making sure it wouldn't collapse, I said. The room went quiet. Felix's expression shifted. That's your job, Wes, Jade said. Her tone was light, almost amused. Supporting the strategy team. I designed the strategy, I said. You executed it, she corrected. There's a difference. Felix cleared his throat. Let's stay focused on results. I didn't respond. There was no point. This was how it always went. Jade reframed my work as her initiative. Felix backed her up. The cycle repeated until everyone believed it. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. People filed out, shaking Jade's hand, congratulating her on the strong quarter. I stayed in my seat, gathering my notebook. Felix lingered near the door. You need to work on your attitude, he said quietly. I need to work on my attitude, I repeated. Jade's doing excellent work, he said. You don't need to undermine her in front of clients. Those weren't clients. Those were internal managers. And I wasn't undermining her. I was clarifying my role. Your role is to support leadership, Felix said, not question it publicly. I stared at him. Felix Farrow, my father, the man who built Farrow Industrial Services from a 2-person operation into a multi-site logistics company, the man who taught me that precision mattered, that systems thinking separated good companies from great ones, the man who now looked at me like I was a problem to manage. Understood, I said. He nodded and left. I sat there another 5 minutes, watching the empty room. This wasn't new. It was just louder now. More public. Jade had been doing this for years, taking credit, shifting blame, rewriting history in real time. Felix enabled it because she was his favorite, because she looked the part, because she knew how to work a room in ways I never cared to learn. I gathered my things and headed back to my desk. The open plan office hummed with activity. Phones rang, keyboards clattered. I passed a cluster of coworkers near the break room. One of them, Angela from logistics, glanced at me and quickly looked away. I kept walking. My desk sat in the far corner, near the server room entrance. It wasn't a power position. No window view, no proximity to executive row. Just a functional space where I could access systems without interruption. I set my notebook down and logged into my terminal. 17 new emails. Most were automated alerts. 3 were vendor questions that should have gone to Jade's team, but got routed to me because people knew I'd actually answer. 1 was from Elaine Porter in HR, marking my timesheet for approval. I started drafting responses. Hey, Wes? I looked up. Tom Reeves stood beside my desk, holding a printed report. Need something? I asked. Just wanted to check. Did you finish the compliance documentation for the Hillbrook contract? Sent it yesterday, I said. Check your shared folder. Right. Thanks. He hesitated. Heard the meeting got a little tense. It was fine, I said. Jade seemed pretty confident about the rollout. She always does, I said. Tom nodded slowly. He wanted to say something else. I could see it in the way he shifted his weight, glanced toward the executive corridor. But he didn't. People rarely did. Acknowledging what was happening meant choosing sides, and nobody wanted to bet against Jade Farrow. Anyway, Tom said, thanks for the documentation. He walked away. I returned to my screen, scrolling through vendor contracts, flagging discrepancies in delivery schedules. Routine work. the kind of invisible maintenance that kept operations stable, the kind of work Jade never mentioned in her presentations. My phone buzzed, a text from Felix. Office, now. I locked my terminal and stood. Felix's office sat at the end of the executive corridor, behind a frosted glass door with his name etched in bold letters. I knocked once and entered. He sat behind his desk, hands folded. Jade stood near the window, arms crossed. Close the door, Felix said. I did. Jade tells me you've been uncooperative, Felix said. I looked at Jade. She met my gaze evenly, no expression. How so? I asked. You questioned her publicly, Felix said. You've been dismissive of her leadership. You're creating friction. I clarified my contributions, I said. That's not questioning her leadership. It undermines team cohesion, Jade said. People need to trust the strategy team. They'd trust it more if it acknowledged where the work actually comes from, I said. Felix's expression hardened. Watch your tone. I'm not being disrespectful, I said. I'm stating facts. You're being difficult, Jade said. And honestly, Wes, it's exhausting. I turned to her fully. What exactly have I done that's difficult? You challenge every decision I make, she said. You slow down approvals. You make people second-guess timelines. I ask questions, I said. That's risk management. It's obstruction, she said. Enough, Felix said. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Wes, I'm suspending you. The words landed like a stone. Suspending me, I repeated. Until you're ready to apologize to your sister and commit to being a team player, Felix said. I looked at Jade. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. She just watched. How long? I asked. Until you're ready, Felix said. And if I'm not ready? Then we'll reassess your role here, Felix said. I stood there, absorbing it. This was the line. The moment where loyalty and competence finally split. Felix had chosen, Jade had won. Fine, I said. Felix blinked. Fine? I'll take the suspension, I said. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my access badge, and set it on his desk. Anything else? Felix stared at the badge. You're not going to apologize? Not right now, I said. Wes, he said, his voice softening slightly. This doesn't have to be complicated. It's already complicated, I said. I'm just choosing not to make it worse. I turned and walked toward the door. You'll regret this, Jade said quietly. I paused, hand on the doorknob, and looked back at her. Maybe, I said, but I doubt it. I left the office, walked down the corridor, and exited the building. The parking garage was dim and cool. I found my car on the 3rd level, unlocked it, and sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Felix. Take time to think about what matters. I deleted it. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in 6 months. Miles Carter, CEO of Northline Dynamics. We'd met at an industry conference 2 years ago, traded insights on supply chain optimization, stayed loosely connected through occasional emails. I stared at his name for a long moment. Then I put the phone down and started the car. Not yet, but soon. The apartment was silent when I got home. No work emails, no emergency calls. I set my keys down and stood in the kitchen, staring at the backsplash I'd installed myself. Clean, precise, perfectly level. That was my job. I fixed things. I made systems work. Somehow I'd become disposable. I grabbed a bottle of water and sat by the window, looking out over the industrial park. Warehouses and truck yards stretching into the distance. Farrow Industrial Services owned 2 of those buildings. I'd negotiated the leases, restructured maintenance, integrated the software that kept everything running. Jade's name was on the paperwork. This hadn't happened overnight. It had been building for years. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I remembered joining the company straight out of college. Felix had been demanding but fair. He needed someone who understood operations, who could turn chaos into structure and inefficiency into profit. I was good at it. Very good. Felix noticed, at first. Then Jade returned from business school. 25, confident, polished. She knew how to pitch, how to network, how to impress clients. Felix loved it. He gave her visibility, strategy work, access I'd never asked for but probably should have. At first, it worked. I handled systems, she handled relationships, until it didn't. Gradually, Jade started attending the meetings I used to lead. She reframed my reports in her own language and presented them as shared wins. Felix encouraged it, called it teamwork, leveraging strengths. I didn't push back. I told myself credit didn't matter as long as the work held together. Big mistake. Because once people stopped associating the work with me, they stopped seeing me as essential. I became background, a technician, someone who executed other people's visions instead of shaping them. And Jade became the future. My phone buzzed, a text from Jade. Thanks for knowing your place. Easier for everyone this way. I stared at the message. She'd sent it 20 minutes ago, right after I left the building. She must have been smiling when she typed it. I set the phone down and walked to the window. The industrial park glowed under sodium lights. Trucks rolled toward loading docks. Systems I'd designed were running. Contracts I'd structured were generating revenue. And Jade thought I knew my place. I smiled. She had no idea. I pulled a plastic file box from the spare room closet, filled with old contracts and certifications I'd kept as backups. I flipped through them until I found it, a vendor authorization addendum from 4 years ago. Buried on page 9 was a clause delegating operational authority for contract execution and system access to the Director of Operations and Systems Integration. My title, my idea. Felix had signed it without reading closely, a procedural detail, except it tied my role directly to vendor relationships. If I left, approvals would freeze, contracts would stall. Felix didn't remember it. Jade didn't know it existed, but the company's outside counsel would. I kept going. Compliance certifications I'd signed. Insurance filings naming me as the operational contact. Integration agreements requiring my credentials. Nothing dramatic, just layers of dependency built over years of doing my job well. I set the box on the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and sent a careful email. Miles, hope you're well. I'm exploring options and wanted to reconnect. Coffee this week? Wes Farrow. 6 minutes later, the reply came. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., corner cafe near the industrial park. My treat. Miles. Too fast to be coincidence, which meant he'd been watching. Felix thought I had nowhere to go. Jade thought I'd accept my place. They confused loyalty with dependency. They were wrong. Another message came in, this one from Angela in logistics. Careful, supportive. People noticed. I scrolled through my contacts. Vendors, colleagues, competitors. A quiet network, but real. Jade thought I had no leverage. She was about to learn otherwise. I closed the file box and went to bed. Tomorrow, I'd start building the future they thought I didn't have. The corner cafe sat 2 blocks from the industrial park, tucked between a tire shop and a shipping supply store. It wasn't fancy. Just booths with cracked vinyl seats, coffee that tasted like it came from a machine older than I was, and a bell that rang every time the door opened. Miles Carter was already there when I arrived. He sat in the back booth, laptop open, coffee mug steaming beside him. He looked up when I walked in and waved me over. Wes, he said, standing to shake my hand. Good to see you. You too, I said. We sat. A waitress came by, poured me coffee without asking, and left the pot on the table. So, Miles said, folding his hands, you're exploring options. I am, I said. Mind if I ask why? I took a sip of coffee. It was terrible. I drank it anyway. Family business, I said. It's complicated. Miles nodded. I know the feeling. My brother-in-law tried to get me into his construction company once. Lasted 3 months before I realized I'd rather work for strangers. How come? I asked. Because strangers fire you based on performance, Miles said. Family fires you based on feelings. I smiled. That's about right. Miles leaned back, studying me. I've kept an eye on Farrow Industrial Services. You've done good work there. You've been watching, I asked. We watch everyone, Miles said. It's a small industry. When someone consistently delivers results, people notice. Jade gets most of the credit, I said. Jade gives good presentations, Miles said. But presentations don't optimize supply chains. You do. I didn't respond, just held his gaze. Let me be direct, Miles said. Northline Dynamics is expanding. We're opening 2 new distribution hubs in the next 18 months. We need someone who understands systems integration, vendor management, and operational continuity. Someone who doesn't need 6 months of training to be useful. You're offering me a job, I said. I'm offering you a conversation, Miles said. If it goes well, then yes, I'm offering you a job. What's the role? I asked. Director of Operations, Miles said. You'd report directly to me. Salary's 30% higher than what you're making now. Benefits are standard. Equity options after the first year. I processed that. 30%. That wasn't a lateral move. That was a promotion. How do you know what I'm making now? I asked. Miles smiled. I told you. We watch everyone. I drank more coffee, buying time to think. What's the catch? I asked. No catch, Miles said, but I need someone who can start soon, ideally within 2 weeks. That's fast, I said. We move fast, Miles said. It's how we stay competitive. I set my mug down. I'd need to review the offer in detail. Responsibilities, expectations, reporting structure. Of course, Miles said. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. Everything's in here. Take your time. Call me when you're ready. I took the folder but didn't open it. One question, I said. Go ahead, Miles said. Why now? I asked. Why reach out now? Miles tilted his head slightly. Honestly? Honestly, I said. Because I heard you walked out of Farrow Industrial yesterday, Miles said. And I figured if you're walking, you might be open to running. I stared at him. How did you hear that? I asked. Industry's small, Miles said again. People talk. I didn't ask who. It didn't matter. What mattered was that Miles had been ready, waiting. The offer wasn't reactive. It was strategic. I'll review this, I said, tapping the folder, and I'll call you. Take your time, Miles said, but not too much time. He stood, left cash on the table for the coffee, and walked out. I sat there for another 10 minutes, staring at the folder. Then I opened it. The offer was real. Director of Operations, salary, benefits, equity options. Start date flexible, but preferred within 2 weeks. Reporting structure clean, no ambiguity. It was everything I should want, and it was leverage. I closed the folder and left the cafe. The parking garage was mostly empty when I got back to Farrow Industrial Services. I wasn't supposed to be there. My badge was deactivated. But I still had keys to the side entrance near the loading docks. Nobody used it except maintenance crews. I slipped inside and took the back stairwell to the 3rd floor. The records archive sat at the end of a dim hallway, behind a door most people forgot existed. We'd digitized everything 5 years ago, but the physical files were still here. Boxes stacked on metal shelves, organized by year and department. I found the section marked Operations Contracts and started pulling boxes. It took 20 minutes to locate what I needed. Vendor agreements, authorization addendums, system access documentation, everything I'd flagged yesterday in my apartment, plus a few I'd forgotten about. I pulled my phone and started taking photos. Each page, each signature, each clause. When I finished, I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and left the building the same way I'd entered. Nobody saw me. Nobody knew I'd been there. By the time I got back to my car, I had 47 photos on my phone. 47 pieces of institutional dependency that Jade didn't know existed. I sat in the driver's seat and scrolled through them slowly. Felix thought I was on suspension. Jade thought I was irrelevant. Elaine Porter thought I was a procedural problem. None of them understood what they were looking at. I opened my messages and typed a text to Harold Brenner, the company's outside counsel. Harold, Wes Farrow. Need to confirm something about operational authorizations. Any chance you're available this week? I hit send, then I drove home. The response came 2 hours later. Wes, sure. Thursday at 2 p.m.? My office. I confirmed. Then I opened the folder Miles had given me and read through the offer again. Director of Operations at Northline Dynamics. 30% raise. Equity options, clean reporting structure. It was a good offer. But it wasn't just an offer. It was proof. Proof that I had value outside the Farrow name. Proof that competence traveled. Proof that walking away wasn't surrender. It was positioning. I set the folder aside and pulled out my laptop. I opened a blank document and started writing. Resignation letter. Wesley Farrow. I stared at the cursor for a long time. Then I started typing. It was short. Professional. No accusations, no explanations, just a statement of fact. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position at Farrow Industrial Services. Thank you for the opportunity. Wesley Farrow. I saved it, but didn't send it. Not yet. First, I needed to talk to Harold Brenner. First, I needed to confirm what I already suspected. First, I needed to make sure that when I walked away, the ground shifted beneath their feet. My phone buzzed. A text from Jade. Still thinking about that apology? I deleted it without responding. Then I opened my calendar and marked Thursday at 2 p.m. Harold Brenner's office. The place where assumptions would start cracking. Harold Brenner's law office occupied the 4th floor of a glass and steel building downtown. Sleek. Expensive. The kind of place that charged by the quarter hour and made sure you knew it. I arrived 10 minutes early and waited in the lobby. Leather chairs, abstract art, a receptionist who smiled without making eye contact. At exactly 2 p.m., Harold emerged from the hallway. "Wes," he said, extending his hand. "Good to see you." We shook. His grip was firm, professional. "Thanks for making time," I said. "Of course," he said. "Come on back." His office was clean and organized. Law books lined one wall, a desk with 2 monitors, a window overlooking the financial district. He gestured to a chair. I sat. "So," Harold said, settling into his own seat. "What can I help you with?" I pulled a folder from my bag. Inside were printouts of the documents I'd photographed in the archive. "I need to confirm something about operational authorizations," I said. I slid the first document across the desk. "This vendor authorization addendum from 4 years ago. Page 9. The clause about delegating contract execution authority." Harold picked up the document and scanned it. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes," he said slowly. "I remember this. We implemented it during a compliance audit. Your father was traveling frequently. You needed signing authority to keep contracts moving." "Right," I said. "And that authority is tied to my role, a director of operations and systems integration." Harold nodded. "Correct." "What happens if I'm no longer in that role?" I asked. Harold set the document down. He looked at me carefully. "You'd need to transfer the authorization," he said. "Formally, in writing, with vendor notification." "How long does that take?" I asked. "Depends on the vendor," Harold said. "Some require 30 days' notice. Some require reapproval from their legal teams. It's not automatic." "And if I leave the company entirely?" I asked. Harold's expression shifted. Not alarm. Not yet. But awareness. "Then the authorizations would freeze until a replacement is designated and approved," he said. "Contracts wouldn't process. Purchase orders would halt. Vendor relationships would be in limbo." "For how long?" I asked. "Weeks," Harold said. "Maybe longer. Depends on how fast the company moves to replace you." I pulled out another document. This one was a system access agreement. "And this?" I said. "My credentials are embedded in the inventory and billing integration. If I revoke access, what happens?" Harold picked up the document and read through it. "The system would lock," he said. "Someone would need to rebuild the integration or get your permission to transfer access." "How long would a rebuild take?" I asked. "Months," Harold said quietly. He set the document down and looked at me. "Wes, why are you asking me this?" "Because I'm considering my options," I said. "What kind of options?" Harold asked. "The kind that involve leaving Farrow Industrial Services," I said. Harold leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a long moment. "Does your father know?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "Does Jade?" Harold asked. "No," I said. Harold exhaled slowly. "Wes, if you leave, especially if you go to a competitor, there are going to be complications." "I'm aware," I said. "Legal complications," Harold clarified. "Your father could argue breach of fiduciary duty. Jade could claim you're sabotaging operations." "Could they win?" I asked. Harold hesitated. "Probably not. You haven't signed a non-compete. Your role isn't executive level, and if you resign cleanly, no theft of proprietary information, no poaching of clients, there's no legal basis for restraint." "But?" I asked. "But it'll be messy," Harold said. "Your father won't take it well. Jade will make it personal." "They already made it personal," I said. Harold studied me. "What happened?" "I was suspended," I said, "until I apologized to Jade for questioning her publicly." Harold's eyebrows rose. "Suspended?" "Indefinitely," I said. "On what grounds?" Harold asked. "Creating friction," I said. "Being difficult." Harold shook his head slowly. "That's not a legal justification for suspension." "I know," I said. "Did Elaine Porter document it?" Harold asked. "I don't know," I said. "Probably." Harold picked up a pen and tapped it against his desk. "Wes, if you're planning to leave, you need to do it carefully. Resign in writing. Clear your desk. Don't take proprietary information. Don't make threats. Just leave." "I wasn't planning to make threats," I said. "Good," Harold said, "because if you do, it gives them ammunition." "What if they threaten me?" I asked. Harold smiled faintly. "Then call me." I gathered the documents and put them back in my folder. "One more question," I said. "Go ahead," Harold said. "If I resign effective immediately, is there any legal obligation for me to provide transition support?" I asked. Harold shook his head. "Not unless it's in your employment contract, and I know it's not. Felix doesn't believe in transition clauses. He thinks they're pessimistic." I smiled. He would. I stood. Harold stood with me. Wes, he said, whatever you decide, be smart about it. I will, I said. We shook hands again. I left the office, took the elevator down, and walked back to my car. By the time I reached the parking garage, I'd made my decision. I pulled out my phone and called Miles Carter. He answered on the second ring. Wes, he said, good timing. I was just thinking about you. I've reviewed the offer, I said. And? Miles asked. I accept, I said, on one condition. What's that? Miles asked. I need to start Monday, I said. There was a pause. That's 5 days from now, Miles said. I know, I said. Can you be ready that fast? Miles asked. I'm ready now, I said. Miles laughed. All right, Monday it is. I'll send the paperwork this afternoon. Welcome to Northline Dynamics, Wes. Thanks, I said. I hung up. Then I sat in my car, staring at the dashboard. Monday, 5 days. I opened my email and pulled up the resignation letter I'd drafted. I read it one more time, then I added a single line at the bottom. My last day will be today. I saved it, but I didn't send it, not yet. First, I needed to visit HR. First, I needed to make sure everything was documented. First, I needed to confirm that when the ground shifted, there'd be no way to blame me for the collapse. I started the car and drove back to Farrow Industrial Services. The HR corridor was quiet when I arrived. Elaine Porter's office sat at the far end, behind a door with frosted glass. I could see her silhouette inside, moving between filing cabinets. I knocked. Come in, she said. I opened the door. Elaine looked up from her desk. Her expression didn't change, but her posture stiffened slightly. Wes, she said, I wasn't expecting you. I know, I said. Do you have a few minutes? She glanced at her computer screen, then back at me. Of course. Sit. I sat. Elaine Porter was 52, methodical, and deeply cautious. She'd worked in HR for 30 years and had seen every kind of workplace drama imaginable. She didn't take sides. She documented everything, which was exactly why I was here. I need to confirm a few things, I said. About your suspension? Elaine asked. Yes, I said. She opened a file on her desk and pulled out a printed form. Your suspension was documented on Tuesday. Effective immediately. Duration indefinite, pending resolution. Resolution meaning an apology to Jade, I said. Elaine hesitated. That was the stated condition, yes. Was there any performance-related justification? I asked. Elaine's eyes flicked to the document. The reason listed is conduct detrimental to team cohesion. That's not a performance issue, I said. It's a behavioral issue, Elaine said carefully. Based on what evidence? I asked. Elaine didn't answer right away. She looked at the file again, then closed it. Wes, she said quietly, I document what I'm told to document. I understand, I said, but if I were to resign, would this suspension be considered disciplinary action? Elaine's expression shifted. Are you resigning? I'm exploring my options, I said. Elaine folded her hands on her desk. If you resign, the suspension becomes irrelevant. It wouldn't follow you. It's an internal matter. And if someone asks for a reference, I asked. We provide dates of employment and job title, Elaine said. Nothing else. Company policy. Good, I said. Elaine studied me. Wes, can I ask you something off the record? Go ahead, I said. Why now? She asked. You've been with the company for 8 years. You've dealt with Jade for most of that time. Why is this the breaking point? I thought about the question. Really thought about it. Because I finally realized they're not going to change, I said. Felix won't see it. Jade won't stop. And I'm tired of pretending it doesn't matter. Elaine nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. I looked at her. You do? Off the record, Elaine said. Yes. You're too good at what you do to spend your career being invisible. I smiled faintly. Thanks. Elaine opened her desk drawer and pulled out a blank form. If you do resign, bring the letter to me directly. I'll process it the same day. No delays. Appreciate it, I said. I stood. Elaine stood with me. Good luck, Wes, she said. Thanks, Elaine, I said. I left her office and walked through the open plan floor. Phones rang, conversations overlapped. No one looked at me. I was already invisible. At my desk, everything was untouched. I gathered my personal items, a photo, a USB drive, a book, and packed my bag. I logged in one last time, opened the operations folder, and looked at the files I'd built over years. I didn't delete or copy anything. I logged out. I left a sticky note on my monitor. Thank you. Wes. Angela from logistics saw me as I passed. We exchanged a quiet nod. In the parking garage, I sat in my car and reread my resignation. Effective immediately. I am resigning from my position at Farrow Industrial Services. My last day will be today. Wesley Farrow. I sent it to Felix, Jade, and Elaine Porter. Then I drove home. My phone started buzzing. Felix, Jade, Elaine. I didn't answer. By the time I arrived, there were dozens of missed calls and messages. I turned the phone off, made coffee, and opened my laptop. The Northline Dynamics paperwork was waiting. I completed it, signed, and sent it back. Clean exit. No apologies, no pretending. When I turned my phone back on, the messages had piled up. I ignored most of them. One stood out. Harold Brenner, I called him. You resigned effective immediately, he said. Felix is furious, threatening to sue. On what grounds? I asked. He hasn't decided yet, Harold said. He thinks you're sabotaging them. I resigned, I said. That's all. You're going to Northline Dynamics, Harold said. Their biggest competitor. I know. He paused. Don't respond to Felix or Jade. Forward everything to me. Will do. You've kicked a hornet's nest, he said. I'm ready, I replied. I hung up and waited, because the hornets were coming. The call from Harold came at 8:47 a.m. the next morning. They want a meeting, he said. Who's they? I asked. Felix, Jade, and me, Harold said. Farrow Industrial Boardroom, 10 o'clock. Am I required to attend? I asked. No, Harold said. But I strongly suggest you do. Why? I asked. Because they're about to realize what you already know, Harold said, and it's better if you're there when it happens. I thought about it. Will it be civil? Probably not, Harold said. But I'll be there, and I'll keep it professional. Fine, I said. I'll be there. Good, Harold said. And Wes? Yeah, I said. Don't say anything you don't have to, Harold said. Let them talk. Let them realize. Just watch. Understood, I said. I hung up and got dressed. The Farrow Industrial Services boardroom was on the third floor, glass-walled and visible from the open-plan workspace. It was designed for visibility. Felix liked people to see when important meetings were happening. It reinforced hierarchy. Today, it was going to work against him. I arrived at 9:55 a.m. The building felt different, quieter. People glanced at me as I walked through the lobby, then quickly looked away. News traveled fast. I took the elevator to the third floor and walked toward the boardroom. Felix and Jade were already inside. Harold sat across from them, reviewing documents. I opened the door and stepped in. Felix looked up. His face was tight, controlled anger barely contained. Jade leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. She didn't look angry. She looked satisfied, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Sit, Felix said. I sat. Harold nodded at me but didn't speak. Wes, Felix said, do you understand what you've done? I resigned, I said. You abandoned the company, Felix said. You walked out in the middle of critical operations. You left us exposed. I submitted my resignation in writing, I said. That's the appropriate procedure. Effective immediately, Jade said. Without notice, without transition. That's not appropriate. That's sabotage. I wasn't given notice when I was suspended, I said. I was told to leave immediately. I complied. Felix's jaw tightened. That was discipline. This is betrayal. Was it documented as discipline? I asked. I looked at Harold. Because Elaine Porter told me it was a behavioral suspension, not performance-related. Harold cleared his throat. That's correct. So I was suspended for behavior, I said, not for failing to perform my job, which means there was no operational justification for removing me. You questioned your sister publicly, Felix said. You undermined her authority. I clarified my contributions, I said. That's not undermining. That's transparency. Jade leaned forward. You're playing word games, Wes. You know what you did. I resigned, I said again. That's all I did. And joined Northline Dynamics, Jade said. Our competitor. I accepted a position that values my skills, I said. You're stealing our clients, Jade said. I haven't contacted any clients, I said. I haven't taken any proprietary information. I haven't violated any agreements. Felix stood. Harold, can we stop him? Harold looked up from his documents. Stop him from what? From working for Northline, Felix said. No, Harold said. He doesn't have a non-compete. His role was an executive level, and he resigned cleanly. Cleanly, Felix said. He walked out without transition. Which is legal, Harold said. He's not contractually obligated to provide transition support. You don't have those clauses in your employment agreements. Felix stared at him. Why not? Because you told me they were pessimistic, Harold said quietly. The room went silent. Jade broke it. Fine, he can work wherever he wants. But he left us in a mess. Contracts are frozen, systems are locked. He did that on purpose. Actually, Harold said, pulling out a document, he didn't. He slid the paper across the table toward Felix. This is the vendor authorization addendum from 4 years ago, Harold said. The one Wes asked me about last week. It ties operational contract authority to his role. If he leaves, those authorizations freeze until a replacement is formally designated. Felix picked up the document. His eyes scanned the page. I signed this, he said slowly. You did, Harold said. I don't remember it, Felix said. It was during a compliance audit, Harold said. You were traveling. Wes needed signing authority to keep contracts moving. You approved it. Felix looked at me. You knew about this. I designed it, I said. You signed it. And you didn't tell me it would freeze everything if you left, Felix said. You didn't ask, I said. Jade grabbed the document from Felix. She read through it quickly, her expression darkening. This is entrapment, she said. It's compliance, I said. You wanted operational continuity. This is how we achieved it. By tying the company to you, Jade said. By tying the company to the role, I corrected. Anyone in that role would have the same authority. I just happened to be the one filling it. Harold pulled out another document. There's also the system access agreement. Wes's credentials are embedded in the inventory and billing integration. If he revokes access, the system locks. Can he do that? Felix asked. Technically, yes, Harold said. It's his personal login. He has the right to revoke access at any time. That's leverage, Jade said. He's holding the company hostage. I haven't revoked anything, I said. I resigned, that's all. But you could? Jade said. I could, I said. But I haven't. Felix sat back down. He looked older suddenly. Tired. How long to fix this? He asked Harold. Weeks, Harold said. Maybe longer. You'll need to designate a replacement. Get vendor approvals, rebuild system access. It's complicated. And expensive, Jade said quietly. Yes, Harold said. Felix looked at me. What do you want? Nothing, I said. You want something, Felix said. Everyone wants something. I wanted respect, I said. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted to be seen as more than a technician executing someone else's vision. And now? Felix asked. Now I have a job where that's already assumed, I said. Jade stood. This is ridiculous. He's manipulating us. He's not, Harold said. He's just leaving. Then why does it feel like sabotage? Jade asked. Because you assumed he couldn't, Harold said simply. The room went silent again. Felix stared at the table. Jade paced near the window. Harold gathered his documents. I sat quietly, watching. Outside the glass walls, people in the open-plan workspace had stopped pretending not to watch. Faces turned toward the boardroom. Whispers spread. This wasn't private anymore. Felix saw it too. He stood and walked to the window, staring out at his employees. How bad is it? He asked Harold without turning around. Bad, Harold said. Vendor contracts are frozen. Purchase orders are halted. System access is restricted. You're looking at operational delays across the board. How much will it cost? Felix asked. Hard to say, Harold said, but it won't be cheap. You'll need consultants to rebuild the integrations, legal fees to renegotiate vendor terms, possible penalties for delayed deliveries. Felix turned back to the table. And all of this because Wes resigned. All of this because Wes was essential, Harold said, and nobody noticed until he left. Jade stopped pacing. We noticed. We just didn't think he'd actually go. You didn't think he had options, I said. Jade looked at me. You didn't. You were suspended. You were supposed to apologize and come back. I was supposed to know my place, I said. Jade's expression hardened. Yes. I stood slowly, feeling the moment crystallize. This was it. The turning point. The moment where everything I'd built in silence became impossible to ignore. My place, I said quietly, was holding this company together while you took credit for it. My place was designing systems you claimed as strategy wins. My place was working late to fix problems you created in meetings I wasn't invited to. Felix started to speak. I raised a hand. I'm not finished, I said. The room froze. You suspended me because I questioned Jade publicly, I continued. But the real problem wasn't that I questioned her. It was that I was right. And everyone in that room knew it. They've always known it. They just couldn't say it because you made it clear whose side you were on. Wes, Felix tried again. You made a choice, I said, my voice steady and cold. You chose loyalty over competence. You chose appearance over substance. You chose Jade over the person who actually kept this company running. Jade's face flushed. You arrogant... Arrogant? I interrupted. No. Accurate. And you know what the really interesting part is? I have documentation. Every system I designed, every vendor relationship I built, every integration I implemented, every authorization clause I embedded in contracts over the last 8 years. I pulled out my phone and held it up. 47 photos, I said. Contracts, system diagrams, compliance certifications, authorization agreements, all of it showing exactly how dependent Farrow Industrial Services is on work that you, I looked at Jade, have been taking credit for since the day you walked through that door. You can't use those, Jade said. That's proprietary. It's documentation of my own work, I said. Work I created, work I implemented, work that has my signature on every page. And I'm not using it for anything except to remind you both of something you seem to have forgotten. I set the phone down on the table. I was never the problem, I said. I was the solution. And you just fired the solution because you couldn't handle the truth. Felix's face had gone pale. Wes, if this is about money... It's not about money, I said. Although Northline is paying me 30% more than you were. It's about respect. It's about being valued. It's about working somewhere that doesn't treat competence as a threat. I turned to Harold. You asked me what I want. Here's what I want. I want you to tell Felix and Jade exactly what it's going to cost to replace me. Every dollar, every delay, every vendor penalty, every client conversation, every system rebuild, I want them to see the bill. Harold met my eyes. Then he nodded slowly and pulled out a legal pad. Conservative estimate, he said, writing as he spoke. System integration rebuild. 4 to 6 months. Consultant fees approximately $300,000. Vendor reauthorization. Legal fees around $75,000. Possible contract renegotiation costs another $100,000. Operational delays and penalty clauses. Depends on delivery timelines, but likely another $200,000 minimum. Staff training for new systems, $50,000. And that's assuming everything goes smoothly. He set down his pen. Total conservative estimate, $725,000. Realistic estimate with complications, somewhere between 1 and 1.5 million. The number hung in the air like smoke. Jade's face had gone from flushed to white. That's insane. That's accurate, Harold said. We can hire someone else, Jade said desperately. Someone who can do in 6 months what Wes did over 8 years? Harold asked. Sure, if you can find them, if they're available, if they're willing to rebuild everything from scratch without any institutional knowledge. Good luck. Felix sat down heavily. He looked at me with something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Fear, not of me, of what my absence meant. There has to be a way to fix this, he said quietly. There is, I said. You designate a replacement. You work with Harold to transfer authorizations. You hire consultants to rebuild the systems. You pay the penalties. You explain to your vendors why contracts are delayed. You apologize to clients for operational disruptions. And you do it all without me. Why are you doing this? Felix asked. I'm not doing anything, I said. I resigned. You suspended me first, remember? You told me to leave until I apologized. Well, I left. I just didn't come back. This is revenge, Jade said. I looked at her for a long moment. No, I said. Revenge would be actively sabotaging you. Revenge would be contacting your vendors and telling them to switch to Northline. Revenge would be poaching your best employees. Revenge would be leaking operational weaknesses to competitors. I paused. This isn't revenge, I said. This is consequence. You built a company on my work and then convinced yourselves you didn't need me. Now you get to find out if that's true. I picked up my phone and put it in my pocket. I start at Northline on Monday, I said. I'll cooperate with reasonable transition requests, transfer of credentials, vendor contact information, system documentation, but I'm not working for you anymore. I'm not fixing your problems anymore, and I'm definitely not apologizing. I walked toward the door. Wes, Felix said, his voice breaking slightly. Please? I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. For just a moment, I felt something. Not sympathy, not regret, satisfaction. Pure, clean satisfaction. You should have thought about that before you suspended me, I said without turning around. Then I opened the door and walked out. The open-plan workspace had gone completely silent. Every desk, every cubicle, every conversation, frozen. People stared as I walked past. Some looked shocked, some looked impressed. Angela from logistics had a small smile on her face. I didn't acknowledge any of them. I just walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. The elevator dinged, the doors opened. I stepped inside and turned around. Through the glass walls of the boardroom, I could see Felix sitting with his head in his hands. Jade was pacing frantically, gesturing at Harold, who remained seated, calmly organizing his documents. The perfect picture of a crisis unfolding in slow motion. The doors began to close. At the last second, Tom Reeves caught them. Wes, he said, stepping into the elevator with me. Wait. The doors closed. We started descending. That was incredible, Tom said quietly. I didn't respond. I mean it, he continued. Everyone's been watching Jade take credit for your work for years. Nobody had the guts to call it out. I didn't call it out for them, I said. I called it out for me. Tom nodded. Fair enough, but still, that took spine. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened. Tom put a hand on my shoulder. Good luck at Northline. Thanks, I said. I walked across the lobby and out into the cold morning air. My phone started buzzing immediately. Felix, we need to talk, please. Jade, you just destroyed everything our father built. I deleted both without reading them fully. Then I got in my car and drove away. The weekend passed in a strange, suspended calm. My phone continued buzzing periodically. Felix trying to call, Jade sending increasingly angry texts, even a few messages from coworkers asking what happened. I ignored all of it. Saturday morning, I went for a long run, cleared my head, thought about nothing. Saturday afternoon, I cleaned my apartment, organized files, prepared for Monday. Saturday evening, I received an email from Miles Carter. Wes, looking forward to Monday. Wanted to give you a heads up. Word's gotten around about your departure from Farrow Industrial. Several vendors have already reached out asking about operational continuity. Thought you should know. Miles. I read it twice. Then I smiled. The consequences were spreading faster than I'd anticipated. Sunday was quieter. I reviewed Northline's operational structure, studied their current vendor relationships, familiarized myself with their distribution network, professional preparation, but also a reminder that I had somewhere to go, somewhere that wanted me. Sunday evening, my phone rang. Harold Brenner. I answered. Wes, he said, I wanted to give you an update. Go ahead, I said. Felix has been trying to reach you, Harold said. I know, I said. I'm not taking his calls. He's asking me to facilitate a conversation, Harold said. About what? I asked. About you coming back, Harold said. I laughed, actually laughed. Ah, you're joking. I'm not, Harold said. He's willing to offer a significant raise. A new title. Direct reporting to him instead of through Jade. Full operational authority. Let me guess, I said. Jade approved this. She doesn't know yet, Harold admitted. Felix is planning to present it as a fait accompli. That should go well, I said. Wes, Harold said carefully, I'm obligated to pass along the offer, but between us, I don't think you should take it. Why not? I asked. Because nothing's actually changed, Harold said. Felix is panicking. He's trying to solve an immediate crisis. But 6 months from now, after things stabilize, it'll go back to how it was. Jade will reassert control, Felix will defer to her, and you'll be right back where you started. I know, I said. You're not going to take it, Harold said. Not a chance, I said. Harold was quiet for a moment. Good. You deserve better. Thanks, Harold, I said. One more thing, he said. You should know, I'm probably going to stop representing Farrow Industrial Services. That surprised me. Really? Felix keeps asking me to find legal ways to restrict your ability to work for Northline, Harold said. To delay vendor transfers, to create complications. I keep telling him there's no legal basis. He keeps pushing. It's become unethical. I appreciate you holding the line, I said. It's my job, Harold said. But it's also the right thing. What they did to you was wrong. I should have said that earlier. You're saying it now, I said. Yeah, Harold said. Anyway, good luck Monday. Thanks, Harold, I said. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my apartment. Felix was panicking. Jade was probably furious. The company was unraveling. And I was about to start fresh at a company that actually valued what I brought to the table. I slept well that night. Monday morning, I arrived at Northline Dynamics at 8:30 a.m. The building was modern, all glass and steel, with a lobby that felt open and professional without being intimidating. Miles Carter was waiting for me. "Wes," he said, shaking my hand warmly. "Welcome aboard." "Thanks for having me," I said. "Let me show you around," Miles said. He walked me through the building, introduced me to department heads, showed me my office, actual office, not a desk in the corner, window view, door that closed, respect built into the architecture. "Your team's waiting in conference room A," Miles said. "Whenever you're ready." I followed him to a large conference room where 6 people sat around a table. They stood when I entered. "Everyone," Miles said. "This is Wes Farrow, our new director of operations. Wes, this is your team." I shook hands, learned names, saw genuine interest in their eyes. No skepticism, no defensiveness, just professionals ready to work. "I'm looking forward to learning how you all operate," I said, "and figuring out how we can make things better together." "We've heard good things," one of them said, Talia, the logistics coordinator. "Miles says you're the reason Farrow Industrial Services ran as smoothly as it did?" "I helped," I said carefully. "He's being modest," Miles said. "Wes built most of their operational infrastructure. We're lucky to have him." I felt something unfamiliar. Pride. Not the quiet satisfaction of solving a problem. Actual, acknowledged pride. We spent the morning in meetings. I listened more than I talked. Asked questions, took notes. Started building a mental map of how Northline operated and where I could add value. At lunch, Miles and I ate in his office. "How's it going so far?" he asked. "Good," I said. "Really good." "I got a call from Felix Farrow this morning," Miles said casually. I looked up. "What did he want?" "He wanted to know if there was any way to delay your start date," Miles said. "Offered to compensate us for the inconvenience." "What did you tell him?" I asked. "I told him Wes Farrow is an employee of Northline Dynamics as of today, and any communication regarding his previous employment should go through his attorney," Miles said. I smiled. "Thanks." "He also implied you might have taken proprietary information," Miles said. "I didn't," I said. "I know," Miles said. "I told him if he wanted to make accusations, he should do it in writing with his legal counsel." He hung up. "Felix doesn't like being cornered," I said. "Nobody does," Miles said. "But he cornered himself. You just stopped holding up the walls." The first week at Northline passed quickly. I absorbed information, built relationships, started identifying inefficiencies, small things at first, process improvements, communication gaps, system redundancies. By Friday, I drafted a preliminary operational assessment. Miles read it in his office while I waited. "This is excellent," he said finally. "You've identified issues we've been dancing around for months." "They're fixable," I said. "I know," Miles said. "That's why you're here." My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. A text from Angela at Farrow Industrial. "Thought you should know. 3 vendors pulled contracts today. Felix is losing it. Jade's trying to blame you. Nobody's buying it." I showed the message to Miles. He read it and shook his head. "How long until they stabilize?" "Months," I said. "Maybe longer. They don't have anyone who understands the full operational picture. They'll have to rebuild it piece by piece." "Good for us," Miles said. "Bad for them." "They did it to themselves," I said. Miles leaned back in his chair. "You know what the interesting thing is?" "What?" I asked. "You could have destroyed them," Miles said. "You had access to proprietary information, client lists, vendor relationships, system vulnerabilities. You could have actively sabotaged them." "I could have," I said. "But you didn't," Miles said. "I didn't need to," I said. "They destroyed themselves the moment they decided I was expendable." Miles smiled. "That's the difference between revenge and consequence." "Exactly," I said. Friday evening, I got a call from Harold Brenner. "Wes," he said, "I'm officially no longer representing Farrow Industrial." "They let you go?" I asked. "I withdrew," Harold said. "Felix kept pushing me to find ways to hurt you legally. I told him I wouldn't. He said he'd find another attorney who would. I said good luck and walked away." "How did he react?" I asked. "Not well," Harold said. "But that's not your problem anymore." "No," I said. "It's not." Saturday morning, I was having coffee in my apartment when my phone rang. "Felix." I almost didn't answer. but something made me pick up. "Hello?" I said. "Wes?" His voice was strained, tired. "Please, just give me 5 minutes." "Why?" I asked. "Because I need to understand," he said. I sat down. "Understand what?" "How I got this so wrong," Felix said. "How I missed what you were actually doing. How I let Jade convince me you were the problem." "You didn't miss it," I said. "You chose not to see it." Felix was quiet for a moment. "You're right." That surprised me. "I chose Jade because she's my daughter," Felix continued. "Because I wanted to believe she could run the company someday. Because she reminded me of myself when I was younger. Confident, ambitious, charismatic." "She's all those things," I said, "but she doesn't understand operations. She never did." "I know that now," Felix said. "The last 2 weeks have made it very clear." "What happened?" I asked. "Everything you said would happen," Felix said. "Vendors demanding answers, systems failing, contracts freezing, clients getting nervous, and Jade doesn't know how to fix it. She keeps trying to manage it with presentations and reassurances, but nobody's buying it anymore. They want solutions, and she doesn't have any." "Because she never had to learn," I said. "You protected her from that." "Yes," Felix said, "and I suspended the one person who actually knew how everything worked." I didn't respond. "I'm sorry, Wes," Felix said. "I should have said that first. I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air. Part of me wanted to accept it. Part of me wanted to tell him it was too late. "I appreciate that," I said finally. "But it doesn't change anything." "I know," Felix said. "I'm not asking you to come back. I know you're happy where you are. I just needed you to know that I finally see it. Everything you did. Everything I ignored." "Okay," I said. "Can I ask you one thing?" Felix said. "Go ahead," I said. "Did you plan this?" he asked. "The authorizations, the system dependencies, all of it. Was it intentional?" I thought about the question carefully. "No," I said. "I didn't plan it. I just did my job well. I built systems that worked. I created safeguards that protected the company. I documented everything because that's what good operational management looks like." I paused. "The fact that it all fell apart when I left isn't because I sabotaged anything," I continued. "It's because you built a company on my work and then forgot I was the foundation." Felix exhaled slowly. "You're right." "I know," I said. "Good luck at Northline," Felix said quietly. "Thanks," I said. I hung up, and that was it. No dramatic confrontation, no final explosion, just Felix Farrow finally understanding what he'd lost. 3 months later, Miles Carter called me into his office. "Wes," he said, "we just closed a deal with Thompson Distribution. They were one of Farrow Industrial's biggest clients." I looked up. "They switched to us?" "They did," Miles said. "And when I asked why, you know what they said?" "What?" I asked. "They said they'd been working with Wes Farrow for years, and when they found out he'd moved to Northline, the choice was obvious," Miles said. He slid a contract across the desk. $7 million over 3 years, he said. "Because vendors and clients don't follow companies. They follow the people who actually deliver." I stared at the contract. $7 million. Because they'd followed me. "There's more," Miles said. "I've been getting calls from other Farrow Industrial clients. They're asking about you, about whether Northline can handle their volume, about transition timelines." "How many?" I asked. "4 so far," Miles said. "Potentially another $12 million in annual contracts." I sat back. Farrow Industrial Services was hemorrhaging clients. Not because I'd poached them, not because I'd sabotaged anything, but because the people who'd worked with me knew who actually made things run smoothly, and they'd chosen to follow competence instead of a company name. "I need you to handle these transitions personally," Miles said. "Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. 6 months into my role at Northline Dynamics, Miles promoted me to Vice President of Operations. The announcement went company-wide. My team celebrated. Clients sent congratulations. That same week, I saw the news. Farrow Industrial Services sells majority stake to private equity firm. Felix had lost control of his company. The empire he built now belonged to strangers. Jade was listed as a strategic consultant, a hollow title for someone pushed aside. I read the article once, then closed it and went back to work. Their story was over. Mine was just beginning. 18 months after I left Farrow Industrial Services, I received an email from Blackstone Equity Partners, the private equity firm that had purchased majority control of the company. "Mr. Farrow, we're conducting a comprehensive operational review of Farrow Industrial Services. Your name has come up repeatedly. We'd like to discuss a consulting arrangement, generous compensation, Richard Vance, senior partner. I called Miles into my office. Look at this, I said. Miles read it. They want you to consult on the company you built. An hour later, I was on the phone with Richard Vance. I'm not interested in consulting, I said, but I have an alternative. Hire Northline Dynamics as your strategic operational partner. 6 months, $2 million. Silence. That's significantly more than a consulting fee. Richard said, you're getting Northline's entire infrastructure, our systems, our team, and you're getting me on site, fixing what Felix and Jade broke. Let me discuss with my partners, Richard said. 2 days later, he called back. We're in. Monday morning, I walked into Farrow Industrial Services for the first time in 18 months. Richard met me at the elevator. We rode to the 3rd floor. Felix and Jade sat in the boardroom with the board members. Richard addressed the room. We've engaged Northline Dynamics to provide operational support. Leading the engagement is Wes Farrow. Felix stood. This is unacceptable. Sit down, Felix, Richard said. He built this company. You destroyed it after he left. Jade protested. This is a conflict of interest. Unless you'd like to explain why you're opposed to fixing $17 million in losses, stop talking, Richard said. They both sat. I opened my briefcase. This is an analysis of every operational failure since I left, I said, sliding the report across. Vendor delays, system breakdowns, client defections, all preventable. I looked at Felix. You suspended me because I questioned Jade. You thought I was the problem. I paused. I was the foundation. You just didn't realize it until everything collapsed. Richard nodded. Felix and Jade will attend every operational review for the next 6 months. They need to understand what actually runs this company. Jade stood. I'm not sitting through lectures from him. Then you're off the board, Richard said. Choose. She sat back down, trembling. I walked past Felix on my way out. You made a choice when you suspended me, I said quietly. This is just you living with it. Behind me, Jade's voice. This is humiliating. Richard's response? This is consequences. 6 months later, the final board meeting. Farrow Industrial is stable, I said. The question now is leadership. Richard looked at Felix. We're hiring new operational leadership. You remain on the board, advisory only. Jade stood. This is my family's company. This was your family's company, Richard said. You sold it. She walked out. Felix caught my arm afterward. I'm sorry. I destroyed everything. You redirected my career, I said. I'm doing better now. Did you enjoy watching us fail? Yes, I said. Because you finally saw me. For 8 years I was invisible. This was about making you understand what you lost. I understand now, Felix said. Good, I said. I walked out. 2 weeks later, $2 million hit Northline's account. I sat in my office, looking at the confirmation. Felix pushed aside. Jade forced out. The company run by strangers, and I'd made them pay $2 million to prove what they should have known all along. Miles appeared at my door. Drinks? You just made us $2 million. I stood. They spent 18 months trying to prove they didn't need you, Miles said as we walked out, and paid you $2 million to prove they did? I laughed. Somewhere behind us, Felix was living with his choices, Jade realizing competence matters, but I wasn't looking back. I was moving forward, on my terms, without apology.